All right, so I'm at the store. I have a little downtime. I'm in my car. I'm just waiting. And I was thinking about why people support Ukraine. I'm going to tell you why I support Ukraine, and I'm going to ask you to also provide your reasons in the comments below. And that's useful because when you provide your reasons, you can help strengthen somebody else's voice when they know that they should be supporting Ukraine and they just don't know how to articulate it. So here are my reasons, and there's a number of them, right? I'm looking at the victim, Ukraine. I'm looking at the aggressor, Russia. I'm looking at the example that is being set to the world, like I'm looking at the example of my own country. I'm looking at my example to my children. I'm looking at all those things. And then I'm looking at my own morality. And I'm going to talk about each of those in turn, but I might go a little out of sequence. So when I was processing this, when the war first broke, I thought, wow, this is wrong. What's going on here? This shouldn't be happening. And like many of you, I was taken by surprise. I didn't think that Putin was actually stupid enough to do this. And then I thought, wow, Ukraine's in a world of trouble. And then I heard Zelensky's "I need ammunition, not a ride" statement. I thought, wow, who is this guy? And I thought, anybody that's that bold, that should be supported. Okay, so let's talk about the victim. It is absolutely wrong. I don't care who you are. For the neighbor to be invaded like it was by an aggressive neighbor, for Ukraine to be invaded by an aggressive neighbor when they're not, they're not like saber rattling saying we're going to invade you or anything like that. I mean, they're really not. I understand that the trolls will talk about, well, Donbass and whatever else. No. This was like preemptive war was Putin's argument. No, that's not a legitimate reason. So they're really the victims, and you can tell the proof's in the pudding of who the good guys are and who the bad guys are by the actions. So when you're bombing a residential building or a maternity hospital or a kindergarten and you're thinking it's okay to have done those things, like if you just asked, like behind a veil of ignorance, a Rawlsian veil of ignorance, like, okay, the guys that are bombing the residence and the maternity hospital and the kindergarten, are they the good guys or the bad guys? You would say, not knowing whether that was Ukraine or Russia, you'd say those are the bad guys, and that's what Russia is doing in Ukraine, right? So while Ukraine isn't doing that same kind of thing, and they're being very careful, they're clearly the victim. And I know you'll say, well, they hadn't honored the Minsk the Minsk agreements, right? Minsk 1 and Minsk 2. I get that. But Russia failed to uphold the Budapest Memorandum. And from that point forward, the rest of it is just, it's like you robbed my house and then you want me to sign a contract saying at a later date, we're going to settle on this, on what you get to keep. And no. Wait a minute. Okay, so the victim, that's part one. Part two is the aggressor. Russia's clearly the aggressor. And Russia was the aggressor in 2008 in Georgia, and we kind of looked the other way. And when we did that, we did something very bad. We set a precedent that we would look the other way, and shame on us. 2014, when what happened with Donbass and what happened with Crimea, and we didn't do, as the international community, we didn't do anything about that. Shame on us again. And I think Putin was, I went to a European restaurant today, and it was the people that own it are Georgian, and they have Ukrainian flags up on the wall, and they're very supportive of it. And I was thinking about this. I guess part of this was in my mind because of that. And like, it was lightning quick in Georgia, and it was pretty quick in Crimea. And I think, Putin thought that he was going to get away with it again. And if you don't stop him, he's going to do it again and again, because that's what they do. So you have to do it. So you have to check that aggressor. So it's not just about the victim, although it is about the victim. It's as much and maybe even more about stopping the aggressor from harming other victims. And that's another reason to support Ukraine. And then it's about example, right? So we hear a lot about we got to keep our eye on Xi in China. He might be wanting Taiwan, and that's really the big fight. Well, okay, that might be a big fight, but the probability of a big fight there goes down and down and down to the degree that he sees Putin get punched in the nose by Ukraine being supported now by the West. And if Ukraine can prevail, the odds tend to come down that Xi will do something. So there's an example to Xi. But then there's our own example, right? What I mean by that is our own example within the world community, that we will not tolerate this, that it's not okay to wantonly violate international law and commit war crimes and all the things that are going on. It's simply not okay to do those things. If we turn a blind eye like we did before, we're going to get more of that, So, what was it? Henry Cloud or John Townsend, maybe both of them in one of their books said, you get what you tolerate. And if you tolerate that kind of bad behavior, you're going to get more of that kind of bad behavior. So it's the example, both our example and the example within the international community, that we have to be aware of. And then the next thing is my own morality. Like, how can I sit idly by while that's happening? And I know there are other conflicts that have dusted up around the world. There's one going on in Africa, in Niger right now. But there's something different about what's going on in Ukraine. The size and the enormity of it, with Russia as the bully and a real democracy on its border that's trying to work out its own democratic processes. It's enormous, as opposed to Niger, which I feel bad about, but this one in Ukraine could kick off World War III. And we know that Xi is watching and thinking about his own potential plans. And so it's just so much more enormous. And so we have to think about what's going on there, and the example and the possibility that it could extend and kick off into a NATO nation and create World War III. And that would be very, very bad. But my own morality as well, like, what can I do? And that was a question I was asking myself. So immediately I spent some time writing an ebook about it, and I put that up on, because I was learning about Zelensky and writing about it. And then I was documenting it up through the first 4 or 5 months of the war. And then I was thinking, like, what else can I do? And that's when I shifted gears into doing these YouTube videos in about July of last year, maybe late June of last year. And 712 or so videos later, here we are. And so my own morality demanded of me that I put my metaphorical money where my mouth is, my time and effort, and like a couple hours a day, every day for the last 530 some odd days, trying to support, trying to make clear, trying to help, trying to extend whatever I can do, my reach, whatever I can provide in perspective to others. That's what I've been trying to do. And so that's why I'm here explaining this to you right now. And that's why I'm about to ask you, I would like you to please explain below in the comments why you support Ukraine, because it's important that they're supported, and you're going to help some people who wouldn't otherwise know how to explain why they support Ukraine. You're going to help them explain to other people, to articulate, to give them voice, to help them explain, yes, I support Ukraine because of this or that or the other thing. And they'll be able to then read these comments and take that and use that and modify it and take the pieces that work for them to explain to their friends, their family, their neighbors, why it's important to support Ukraine. And I thank you for that. Thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.